right, everybody, how's it going? Tim Fives here, live with Fives. We're a little under the weather, but hanging in. So I wanted to talk today a little bit about managing in crisis, because this is something we find a lot of people go through at various parts of their career or their job or their project or whatever it might be. And I've got quite a bit of experience dealing with this, so I thought I'd be good to kind of walk through some things. We'll go through some of the psychology and then some of the practices on how to get around that. When you get into a crisis, it really evokes an emotional response from us, and generally it's a negative emotional response. And we get into these ways of thinking. Pardon me. So, it's not my fault. Those SOBs did this. You go through, oh my God, we're doomed. We're going to go out of business. The project's going to fail, etc., etc. And when you're in that mindset, the other mindset is to think of it as an opportunity to shine, right? Well, I'm going to solve this problem and figure it out. But when you're in this doom and gloom thing, there's no hope. Those expletives, I forgot the T there. I don't know what happened. Whoops, those expletives screwed me, things like that. You get into the state of scarcity. And we've talked about abundance versus scarcity before. And this puts us directly in the power and the grip of fear. And that's our 4-letter word for the day, fear. And what fear does is it closes our minds, we get into the blame game, etc. And then we start to miss solutions that are all around us. And we stop the ability of ideation, of being able to think outside the box on how to fix this. And this is what leadership's all about, because you're going to go through crisis. You're going to go through hard times and problems and issues, no matter what it is. And you do have a choice of letting the fear grip you, or we'll go through how to get around that. And then a lot of people I find get depressed. They just get really down on themselves, and that's when they start shutting down. And it happens, it happens to all of us. So how do we get out of this? So, if you're in fear, you tend to get into a paralysis state, which means you start just spinning your mind on the issue instead of the solutions. And what you want to do is you want to start it to take some immediate action, because it breaks your brain out of that paralysis. And the thing I like to tell everybody in leadership is start making some decisions, start moving forward, because if you make a decision, even though it may be the wrong one, you can make another one and another one to correct those, and it gets you out of that. So the first thing to do is really to remove your emotion from the situation. This is the hardest thing to do. And in my career, I had the privilege of working for EMC years ago. One of my roles was to go remediate projects that were going into litigation. And what I did, because you had 2 project teams, generally the client and the company team, and things weren't gelling together. And what I was able to do is go in there dispassionately and look at the situation and then formulate a plan. So, one thing to do is find a trusted advisor. Get somebody that can look at this dispassionately, because they're going to look at it without the emotion. And you want to look at some people like that no matter what state you're in, they're going to give you the facts. Start thinking this as a puzzle to solve. We had an issue earlier this year, or late last year, and it was kind of a heavy lift for us, and we sat down and we said, how are we going to get it done? And instead of stewing about, well, that didn't go right, that's not what we said, blah, 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 we said, all right, this is what our client needs, how do we get it to them? It became a puzzle, and then we blocked it off and got it done. And we talk about this, get a dispassionate point of view on the thing. A lot of times we make things in our minds a lot bigger than they are, and get that trusted advisor to come in. We had a situation when we were early in the startup, and I was in a panic. I called the lawyer up, and I'm like, hey, what's going to go on with this? And he's just like, you're fine. You didn't do anything wrong. You documented everything. It's good. But in my mind, we made it really big and ugly. And in one phone call, it's no big deal. Don't worry about it. And then we got right back to work. This is one of the biggest ones. When we get into this fear and paralysis, what our mind does is it starts jumping to these conclusions. Like I said, it makes it really big. So don't do that. Focus on the facts and get the facts. And when I was doing this for the project work, what we would do is go in and we would just start asking questions. We'd come out and say, hey, what about this? We'd interview a bunch of people. We'd find out what the facts were, and we were able to strip away the emotion from that, and then develop a plan, a remediation plan, and then act on that plan. See, now action one of the key tools that gets us out of this paralysis and depression and fear state, and it really helps. So let's recap a little bit. Sorry, coughing a little bit today. What to do in managing in crisis. Like we said, when you get into a crisis mode, a lot of us get into a shutdown mode, right? Because it evokes a lot of emotion, and we go through things that go through our head like, oh my God, we're doomed, or those expletive beeps screwed us over, or there's just no way out of this, there's no hope. And that leads us into a state of scarcity, right? We're operating out of fear. And that closes our minds down, right? It allows our minds just to spin up and create the problem far bigger than it generally always is. And then we start missing the solutions that are all around us. And then a lot of people get depressed or get really down and beat themselves up or whatever you want to call that. So this perpetuates the problem. This continues your downward cycle into that crisis. So when we look at that, what do you do when you're in crisis? Well, if you're in fear, you're over here, and you want to get back out of this into peace. And I didn't say that being in a peaceful state's easy. What I'm saying is that you can get it done and get out of it. Is that you start to take action. For yourself, that action could be a walk around the block. It could be doing a little bit of exercise. It could be doing whatever. But start taking some action to get yourself moving again, because that's the opposite of the paralysis. And then you got to start to remove your emotions from the problem, right? You got to stop blaming people. Stop blaming yourself. That's probably one of the most important things. Stop thinking you screwed up, and start thinking this is a phenomenal way to manage through crisis. That's what leaders do. My mom always said, a calm sea never made a skilled sailor. So there's one for you, Mom. All right, so how do you do that? Well, you find that trusted advisor. You find somebody that's going to be dispassionate about the issue and give you some grounding facts and some grounding truths on that. One of the truths is always that the problem's never as big as we make it in our heads. Start thinking of it as a puzzle to solve. How do I get out of this? Okay, now because that's okay. How do I fix this? What can I do on this? Is a different state of mind of the oh my God, I'm screwed mentality. It really helps you get out of that. The biggest thing that I find people do is they jump to conclusions, right? And they do this because their emotions are so amped up, and they don't have all the facts, that they're making these long gaps to what they think are reasonable conclusions, and those are generally never true. So what do? You focus on the facts. When I was going into these projects, we had one, and it was in Texas. It was a horrible project. We actually sold our software to a competitor. They did some things to it. The installation didn't go well. They blamed us. The state blamed us, and it was a huge mess. And so when I went in there, the first thing I did was start dispassionately just asking some questions, getting to the facts. What happened? What are we trying to accomplish? Who did, kind of the who did what thing? Why did they do that? I started to think about why they were thinking about these things, and then we got to the root cause of that, and then we were able to put a plan together, a remediation plan, communicate that back to the client, and get everything back on the rails. And then we acted on that plan, and you do what you say you're going to do, and then do it. So just some tips when we get into that crisis mode. I thought it'd be good for everybody to get a little bit about that. If you do this, share this, get this out, get the word out. We are having, if you're in the York area, this Wednesday at 6:30, we're doing a meetup here on leadership. We're going to focus on the do's and don'ts of Facebook. I think that's a good topic everybody can get a lot out of. We got quite a few people signed up for that, so if you can join us, do that. It'll be right here at our office, 257 East Market Street. On Wednesday, we're going to finish up our January Facebook Lives, or the wrap-up of what we did all month with these, so stay tuned for that. And the other thing I wanted to announce is we have a brand new podcast coming out with Karen Sachs, so the Marketing Muse. So that was a fantastic thing. That's going to be processed and out today. And so go over to the FivesSquared podcast page and check that out. So hope everybody has a wonderful day, and everybody else stay away from me because I'm a little sick today. But have a wonderful Monday.